Have you taken robotaxis? I haven't, but I know there are many of them in the streets of China, and I look forward to taking one of them. But I do know in central China's Wuhan city, tech giant Baidu's robotaxis are operating amidst bustling traffic, and Wuhan is a pilot city for China to push ahead with the robotaxi services, and more cities will follow suit. But I'm not talking about self-driving itself. Autonomous driving is just one example of what's called new quality productive forces, a concept which went viral since last year. And according to a major meeting on deepening reforms in China, which concluded days ago, China will improve the institutions and mechanisms for fostering such forces and apply digital technologies to promote digital economy. What exactly are the reforms about regarding new quality productive forces? What role does it play in China's development, and what can other countries take away from China's methodology? Welcome to a special edition of The Point with me, Li Xin, coming to you from Beijing. I'm pleased to be joined from Guangzhou, southern China, by Fabienne Pacoury, Executive Vice President of the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry in China. From Jakarta, Indonesia, by Bert Hoffman, Professor at East Asia Institute of the National University of Singapore and former World Bank Country Director for China. I'm also joined from Shanghai by Professor Zhu Ning, Deputy Dean of Shanghai Advanced Institute of Finance at Shanghai Jiaotong University. He is also head of China and senior partner of Brunswick Group. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. So it's a bit of a mouthful to pronounce this term, actually, new quality productive forces, and it was first introduced last year, but it quickly became a buzzword. It was introduced last year, as I said, and it referred to, in letter, to advance productivity freed from traditional economic growth mode and productivity development paths. It features high-tech, high efficiency and high quality, and comes in line with a new development philosophy. Let me go to Professor Zhu Ning here, because you are the more academic one here, I guess. What is your understanding of this term? Give us some concrete examples first.
Yes, I think this is a relatively new term, and this is like a groundbreaking term in the past several months. I think, from the economic perspective, you rely on the traditional productive forces, which is the labor, the land, and the capital. And China has been pushing the boundary of the traditional growth model, I think, over the past decades, hence establishing the Chinese growth miracle. So in a way, I think it has been very useful in lifting China to be one of the major economies in the world, and also greatly improve the life standard, the standard of living for Chinese netizens. But at the same time, I think China is faced with a property bubble, with the debt problem, and with also the varying environment in the global trade and the international finance environment. So I think this is a time for China to think harder about, well, how to sustain its growth and to maintain the quality of its growth. So I think this is a very timely juncture of history that we brought forward this idea of new quality productive forces. And as you pointed out, I think it's about the new technology, the new growth model, and also the new quality. So I think in those three different areas, I think China has been already pushing forward with renewable energy vehicles, with more technology leadership in solar panel and in battery production. So I think that is more about the new technology. And also, I think we're investing very heavily into semiconductor, into AI and big data. So I think that is one area of the new productive forces.
Mr. Hoffman, how do you see the timing of China's coining of this term? And also now this is basically front and central of China's high quality development. How do you understand this term?
Is really quite interesting and sophisticated. It's not just about today's technology, such as new energy vehicles and solar, etc. That already exists. And China has done a great job in developing, scaling it, and now exporting it. But we're talking about the future technologies and the future, such as AI, such as new materials, such as quantum computing, stuff that does not, the technology are not yet perfect here, but they're sort of on the horizon. And that's this thinking about the new quality productive forces is that that will determine the markets of the future, that will determine economic growth of the future. So that's where China must be. And so the decisions that were just taken at the plenum aim towards that, to develop these on the horizon technologies in order to contribute to future markets and future growth.
Mr. Pakori, what have you and your partners and colleagues been paying attention since the introduction of this term, and what kind of changes has emerged for you as China is pointing more clearly to the future direction of promoting the new quality productive forces?
It's very fascinating because these new quality productive forces represent a new type of advanced productivity. It's compatible, as you say, with a new development philosophy. So we understand now that China is at a stage of a great transformation from a quantity-driven economy to a quality-driven economy. So we can feel now is the right time for a new quality productive force for promoting innovation and also technological progress. So China is nowadays a strong innovation base. So it's quite exciting because we can feel that it's a new driver for economic growth.
Yeah, how important, and that is the question, and I want to pose this question to Professor Zhu because it's rather specific. For instance, in the resolution which was just passed days ago during the third plenum of the 20th CPC Central Committee, it said that high quality development is our primary task in building China into a modern socialist country in all respects. So high quality development. And then President Xi actually said developing new quality productive forces is the intrinsic requirement, an important focus of promoting high quality development. So Professor Zhu, exactly how important is fostering new quality productive forces, and why do you think Western countries, Western leaders and policymakers should be sitting up and listening in to what China is saying about this?
Well, I think it is crucial for China to take on the new quality development in a way. I think the high quality development, in a way, I think the high speed of growth is gradually coming to an end. I mean, the 8% and 9% growth speed is no longer feasible for China, given China's size and developmental stage. But then I think China is really right in pointing out, well, there are many aspects of the economy which can be improved without really depending on the high speed growth that we enjoyed over the past decades. So I think there are a few areas, for example, the environmental protection part of the development, the more socially inclusive side of the development, the more self-reliance part of the technology and development of the Chinese economy. I think they all indicated China is becoming stronger, not just faster or bigger, but stronger comprehensively. So the reason why I think the whole world should be mindful of this new term or this new emphasis is I think this is really pointing out the new direction or the new priority for China's growth. And for a lot of areas, for example, the green transformation is not just China's own task. It will have very profound externality, which will benefit the rest of the world. So I think this is why it is important.
Yeah, well, this is not just about new technologies, because from what I'm reading in the resolution, and Mr. Hoffman, let me go to you, it actually says that there are new technology, for instance, but there are also new industries, new business models, new growth drivers that are characterized by high technology, high performance, and high quality. So we're looking at a rather comprehensive upgrading or innovation, wouldn't you say?
I agree, Houston. And if you look at this whole notion and the extent of the decision or the resolution of the third plenum, it's very interesting how China is learning from history. Because if you look at history, you really see that those countries that first master new technologies, and be it book printing or steam engine or electricity, they happen to sort of downstream control the industries that come from those new technologies, or of course the semiconductors is the recent one. So China is saying, well, we want to be part of that game, and that requires not just innovations, i.e. new technologies, great laboratories and great in technology, but it also requires then the linkages to the rest of the economy, to enterprises, non-state enterprises, or private enterprises, to actually pick up those technologies and, if you want, conquer markets with that. So that is all embedded into this resolution. And yes, Western countries should take note of that, because it is a very integrated and consistent way of looking at new technologies. One can doubt whether everything is consistent with WTO and others, but it is a very consistent way of doing industrial policy that other countries haven't done yet, frankly.
Why is this called new quality productive forces, not just high quality development in general? Mr. Pakori, let me ask you this question coming from France. You come from traditionally a more developed industrial country, and what is new about China's approach to upgrading its development that is probably different from the Western industrialized countries?
We can see many different interesting things in China nowadays, especially where I live nowadays in the Greater Bay Area, in South China, in Guangzhou and Shenzhen City. We can see different kind of science and technology innovation, with especially with different strategic clusters. So different disruptive technologies and new different kind of economic development. And when we can see nowadays, just an example, last year, China R&D expenditure exceeding 3.3 trillion RMB, which is 470 billion USD in 2023. So it's an increase of more than 8% on year. So it's very impressive. So we can see that there is also an upgrade here, an update increasing concerning not only emerging industries, but also this innovation involve not only technologies, but also institutions, also management, also. So it's very, the different factors of productivity are being linked together and are being activated and dynamic. So it's very fascinating.
It's very interesting. You talk about, it's not just about greater labs, but it's also greater allocation of resources, greater optimal combination, for instance, of laborers, means of labor, subjects of labor, as well as their renewal, upgrading. Professor Zhu, but just now, Mr. Hoffman brought out a very interesting point, which is industrial policy and whether all of these measures will be in line with WTO rules. Are this the latest version of China's industrial policy, and whether there will be concerns about such policies may be not in line with internationally recognized rules?
Well, I do think it's necessarily a matter of industrial policy, even though I think Bert is very proper in pointing out that industrial policy is a very important and integral part of China's economic policy or overall growth strategy. I think it's more about how to better mobilize the social resources to develop an area or direction which is the future. I think especially in the area of renewable energy transformation, I don't think it's a particular industrial policy that's leading to a particular product. That being said, I think there has already been some debate and negotiation between China and the EU and some other countries about, well, what is the more sustainable way of China's developing certain products or certain areas of technology, for example, new energy vehicles and the solar panels. So I think that's
when you're talking about sustainable here,
same topic.
When you're talking about sustainable here, what exactly do you mean? Do you mean environmentally sustainable, or what exactly?
I think financially sustainable and sustainable in the context of the global trade order. I think it is on one hand very clear China is leading in this technology for so many different reasons. On the other hand, I think there is the concern from the European countries about, well, if China were to replace the traditional ICE automobile makers, then there could be a huge implication to the domestic employment and situation. So I think it's more from a global perspective about how China can both lead the transformation in the renewable energy, but also, I mean, be mindful of other countries' need and domestic market.
Here comes the question, and I'll come back to you, Professor Zhu, but let me go to Mr. Hoffman. Do you think China is mindful of the need to cater to other countries' needs and make its policy implementation internationally friendly one or a long-term sustainable one?
Let me first say that, of course, new technology is a new technological leader alongside other technological leaders in the world is welcome because it means that humankind can better solve the problems that they're facing. On the industrial side, there's more issues. That's also where the battleground is. But China made also in the resolution of the third plenum, they made a clear commitment to the WTO. They made a clear commitment to regional agreements, and that is the CPTPP. China has applied for membership of that, and that limits, if you want, the amount of state support that China can give to its economy, to state enterprises, to non-state enterprises. So if that is done well, I think you can have both. You can have good technological development and compatibility with the international economic order that China supports. They've been a great beneficiary, and they've been very clear that they want to continue to support the multilateral order.
By the way, there was one point which you were quoted as saying by an international press, another press, that market is no longer playing a decisive role. I'm giving you the opportunity to clarify here. Did you did you really say that? Because in the resolution, it did say.
The resolution, yeah.
Yeah.
So in the resolution, it did say, I put out a blog on the basis of the communique. That was the first thing that came out on Thursday afternoon, and I read it, and I saw the decisive force of the market was no longer in. In the resolution, it is in. It's very clear. As a matter of fact, it's probably a bit stronger than in the third plenum of 2013, 10 years ago, when that line came in first. So let me clarify. No, it is definitely in, and I'm pleased to see that the role of the market remains very forceful. It's important for China because if you look at innovation, if you look at the experience of innovation, yes, the basic R&D and the basic knowledge, the theoretical knowledge, can be done in laboratories, can be done in universities, can be done with state support.
Yeah.
But it's most often the market that then drives the innovations, the markets, the future production and productivity. So the market is very important, even in the process of technology.
How important is market going to be in fostering the new quality productive forces, Mr. Hoffman?
Well, there is different views on this, and I think more and more countries cite that they need a bit more industrial policy compared to the past. But in the past, and in the EU, in the United States, this philosophy of, well, let's provide the basic science, basic technologies can be done, supported by government, sometimes for strategic reasons, for military reasons, but then it's the market that drives the next development. And that has been very successful. China is probably more on the side that, well, the state needs to take a stronger role also in the application of those technologies. And I think there has to be a good rule book, otherwise it would continue to be a place where conflict of trade and technical competition would happen.
Mr. Pakori, what is your understanding of the importance of the kind of role the market will play in China's push to foster the new quality productive forces?
I think all those reforms lies in a kind of new coordination, a new cooperation formulated strategy, as you say, concerning allocating resources, but it's about how to maximize the efficiency of resource and of utilization. For example, I think China is pushing for an explosion of a new technological revolution, in order to be able to participate in the latest wave of globalization. And this is good. In this way, it can also influence innovation, competitiveness across various sectors of industries. So I think China is now creating a new top-down form of economic management. This will be very necessary to achieve greater efficiency, market-related, concerning sustainability, security, equity, and it's important because it's all related to the future industries concerning advanced manufacturing, information, advanced materials, nano manufacturing, quantum computing, deep sea mining. So many very interesting, spectacular new fields, and hydrogen energy, genetic engineering. So China is in this new technological revolution now, and so many new things will appear very soon. I mean, so it's very exciting.
Do you think this is going to arouse more concern from governments in developed economies while providing potential opportunities for investors from France, for instance, or other developed economies?
Yeah, absolutely. We can see many interesting opportunities there because it's a future industrial development. China is transforming traditional industries, fostering emerging industries, and building future-oriented industries. So we know that it's plenty of opportunities for the future, and a lot of potential there, of course, yes.
Professor Chu, what is your understanding of the kind of role that the government will play vis-à-vis the role the market will play in China's plan to develop the new quality productive forces?
I think that is an excellent question. I think this is the key question which China would have to answer and answer well to sustain its high quality economic transformation. I think that there's also a new term coming out of the third plenum, which is the high standard socialistic market economy. So I think my interpretation of that is, well, it is, after all, a market economy, as you discussed with Bert earlier, which relies on the market to allocate resources, but then we also have to make preparation for, well, the market can fail at certain points, and also there are certain tasks which are beyond the scope of the market. So I think how China can provide better social welfare and can provide better incentive for the market to be more effective or to be allocating resources better, and how China can, in this process, address some of the concerns in the past, which is about, well, how to bring people more along with the development process, how to prevent some of the potential of a systematic financial crisis. So I think those are the matters which would require a very important role of the government. But then I think I do want to emphasize that we cannot go too far in a way that, well, the market economy is gradually giving way back to the planning economy. We all know what has happened to China before the start of the reform and opening up.
Do you see any signs of that? Because there are reports which are doubting the direction that China's economy is going. They think that China is possibly backpedaling from moving towards a more market-oriented economy from the third plenum. Do you think China is pedaling back or is just doing a better job at regulating the market, more effective, but not taking it over?
Well, I think there are mixed signs, which I think the rest of the world may be interpreting in different way. But I think based on my observation, China, especially coming out of the third plenum, China is still very much committed to reform and opening up. But I think it could be better interpreted in a way that, well, as what we're doing here, China could communicate its main mission and message in a more, I think, amenable way to the West, so that China is better understood.
Yeah, but the message here, which one would you highlight? That China is more committed to opening up and reform, or China is more committed to more control and the previous
China
one?
is more committed to reform and opening up, for sure.
Mr. Hoffman, give us your take, because it is very confusing. A lot of signals, a lot of terms to interpret, very long sentences, difficult for us as well. But from your take, for the laymen and laywomen out there, what is the central message you think Chinese central government is trying to send?
So I have called it a more statist approach to development, all right, compared to many market approaches, but it doesn't mean a state approach to development. It is a more state-guided, more state-inspired, and more state-directed economy compared to the Western development models. That may be very appropriate for China, and it has shown to have some success. Some of the market-oriented development that China showed in the past has its downsides as well, and as Juning said, look, some of that correction needs to happen. This new phase probably requires more state intervention than just creating the markets, just mobilizing the resources, the capital resources, the labor resources. This is a more sophisticated game. So how that balance exactly comes, frankly, I like the term high standard socialist market economy. So the high standards are added to the socialist market economy that was established in 1993. In that sense, the basic direction hasn't changed dramatically, but there are nuances that make the orientation more towards the state.
Because when you talk about the word state, there's an inherent negative sentiment in the mind of a lot of people that come from a Western background. They would say, "Our state is let's be careful, let's stay back." They want to take, especially if you talk about a state from China, that's even more dangerous. But in the Chinese context, it is probably very necessary. And as China move forward, Mr. Hoffman, is that your understanding as well? Yes or no?
So yes, and I don't see it as necessarily negative. The state has a role to play. States' roles are different in different market economies around the world, and China has a right to define its own role of the state in its own socialist market economy.
Yeah. Mr. Pakori, how can European countries also come up to speed, basically, in terms of digital economy with China? Because if you go back to France, I'm sure you'll be quite surprised at how slow things have digitalized.
I think Western countries have to get used to the new China, because China now, as Mr. Hoffman just said, it's a very sophisticated country, and now China has a strong innovation base. And now it's also the right time for China to show his new face and to the world, and to also extend benefits of its technological progress to the whole world, to show, especially to developing countries, to show that they can share the fruits of China technological progress.
We're going to leave it there. Many thanks to my guest, Fabien Pakori, Executive Vice President of the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry in China, joining us from Jakarta, Indonesia. Bert Hoffman, Professor at East Asian Institute of the National University of Singapore and former World Bank Country Director for China, and Professor Zhu Ning, Deputy Dean of the Shanghai Advanced Institute of Finance at Shanghai Jiao Tong University. And with that, we come to the end of this special edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, you can follow us on Facebook and X using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing. On behalf of the whole team, thank you for joining us. You've got The Point.